And this is the first warm meal many of these folks will be having for the day. And there's the president over there saying hi to all these, again, amazing volunteers. This food truck has been around since 2000. There he is. He's talking to the folks. You can see that he's moving pretty fast. I think he realizes and recognizes that there are folks waiting to get their food for the first time, and we're going to start seeing some cars actually move up to pick some of this food up. We may even see the president serve some food right now. We're looking at that right now. A vehicle is about to pull up. And again, some of these folks can make the trip out here. They have enough fuel, but they may not have enough power at home to cook their own meals. So that's why they've made it all the way out here. And we're going to see the president here give out some of these meals now.
Good work down there. Brian Yennis there on the scene in New Bern, North Carolina at the distribution site. We're going to hang with this for a moment. We'll see what that.
Looks like he's got some lunch. Oh, he's helping hand out lunches to some of the volunteers there. This is the second stop on his tour since he's gotten on the ground there. He's in one of the hardest hit areas right now, New Bern, North Carolina, specifically at a local church that's doubling as a distribution center. The church is located near the base there, but the president felt this was incredibly necessary to go down and thank all of these volunteers for the hard work that they're doing. He commented earlier at that briefing, so much more work left to be done in this area. The president's on the ground.
That flyover on Air Force One had to really leave an impression, too, when you see the widespread damage in that eastern half of the state. It just goes on forever. And some of the rivers there, some of them have yet to crest at their highest point. Some of the others have reached a point, you know, when you think about Cape Fear River, what, 20, 35 feet over its banks. Just drop in here, see if we can pick up a little gnat sound, as we call it in the business.
Back. Let's go, guys. Step it back. You're going to get hit by cars. Back.
Let's go, back.
National Guard won't let them through if you're in the road. 4? I get it. 4, ma'am. I'm sorry.
But we were hoping to get more than just back, as they're moving folks away from the caravan of cars coming in.
You were commenting on, obviously you see the North Carolina governor there, Roy Cooper, has been traveling on the ground there since the president arrived. And you were commenting earlier on just the fantastic job that this governor...
I tell you what, Sandra, I mean, even going back to a week ago, he's been out there almost every hour of every day. And he's getting a lot of respect from the people down there in North Carolina that he's trying to take care of. I think also, too, you know, for the commander-in-chief, the president, to be there today, it is really, it's a shot in the arm for people who have needed to be lifted up and have their spirits carried through, and also to know that, you know, the federal government's got their back, and they need a lot of help right now for so many.
So since the president arrived there, as you can see, he's handing out lunches, and this is the area where our reporter Brian Yennis has been stationed all day. They're making hot dogs there, a warm meal to many folks who haven't had one in quite some time. But New Bern, one of the hardest and first hit areas from Hurricane Florence. As the president arrived, he passed by spectators. As you can see, he's talking to folks, taking pictures with many, shaking hands. I guess it's fair to say a very welcome moment for some folks who have been through some hard times.
Yeah, hardship indeed. I think, too, so much of the electricity and power's out, and the sun's back out. It's steamy mid-afternoon in eastern North Carolina. And, you know, without that power and the air conditioning, it's very, very uncomfortable. Think about the heartache, too, for so many people who have left their homes and the rivers. They just continue to rise, and we see so many houses underwater. And then they come back to a life that they left that was in a much different state. And now they're facing an uncertain future for so many.
Another pool note that came in from one of the print reporters, that during his briefing, that was his first stop, this is his second there, at the Marine Air Station, Cherry Point, the president asked a state official, "How's Lake Norman doing?" He asked, and he was assured that it was doing fine, and he replied, "I love that area. I can't tell you why, but I love that area." There is a Trump National Golf Course on the shores of Lake Norman, which is near Charlotte, North Carolina. With the president taking keen interest in thanking all of those volunteers that you see behind you there, helping folks get a warm meal. An update at that briefing a short time ago, Bill, 1.6 million meals have been delivered so far, and many more are getting handed out.
Lake Norman is beautiful around the Charlotte area. It's had a lot of growth over the past 10 years or so. A little hug there from one of the young men. Said, "Can I give you a hug?" And that's what happened. Quote, "This is unbelievable compared to Matthew." referring to a hurricane 2 years ago that swamped the region, but nothing like this, Sandra.
You know, without so many shouting to stay back, can we hear the president again? Just barely, but putting his hands around another child there. I'm not sure if that was one who asked for a hug, but one did a short time ago, and the president continues to hand out a warm meal to those folks who are pulling up, and many desperately in need of one with no electricity for days.
I think that's what he was asking too. Is do you have the power back? And that's a long way to go for so many. Overnight, there were 2 more deaths reported in South Carolina. Apparently, 2 detainees are being transported. 2 women who drowned. That is now under investigation. But the problems continue with high water and these rescue teams plucking so many from the waters, from homes and cars. North Carolina's governor pleading with so many just to be patient. Really tough to do, you know. I mean, the governor admits that, you know, many roads are dangerous and the new hazards are possible with the floodwaters, and you got about 10,000 people in shelters, and once you leave your property and land, you want to come back and check it out. And for so many parts of that state, it's just not possible. It's still too dangerous.
So this is the second stop of the president's 5-stop tour. We don't know the specific stop until he gets there. This, of course, is New Bern. Before this, he was at the Cherry Point Marine Corps Air Station, where we heard from those that are traveling with him, including North Carolina Senators Burr and Tillis, South Carolina Senators Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham are traveling with him, as well as members of his team, Mick Mulvaney, Linda McMahon, Secretary Nielsen, among others. We heard them at the updates as well. Brock Long gave an update, said the rivers are still cresting, which was a warning that there are still many days, tough days ahead.
Also got word at sunrise that one road has been opened officially in the Wilmington, North Carolina, which really was the epicenter for the storm. You know, the eye passed over that area, and as it came on shore, and Wilmington surrounded by these low-lying rivers. The Cape Fear is just one of them. Little River down there, back up into Lumberton, North Carolina. The rivers come from the Atlantic, and all that water gets pushed up there, then it comes back out again. Then with the changing tides, high tide, the low tide, back to high tide yet again, the water just continues to creep everywhere.
Pretty neat sight as the president continues to distribute meals to those pulling up. Volunteers standing behind him. The governor of North Carolina said our people are still reeling. Lives have been lost. Farmers have lost everything. Still a tough situation there, but possibly a little bit of a bright moment here.
This trip is very important for the people of North and South Carolina. So listen, we're going to run for now. We'll see you again tomorrow. Outnumbered starts in about 3 seconds. Bye-bye.
Bill and Sandra, thank you so much for the handoff. We are going to stay with these live pictures of the President of the United States on the ground with a team there, some members of the cabinet, some members of FEMA. This is a huge on-hands look at what's happened after the Hurricane Florence. And so with the president there, this is his second stop. We are only showing you and mentioning these stops as they happen in real time. This is North Carolina. This is New Bern, North Carolina. And a long stretch of Highway 70 between Kinston and New Bern, where communities are all but cut off. People can't come in and out easily, and they are in line for sustenance products, water, food, the basics. And you see the president there, and I can lower my voice if my team can tell me that we might be able to hear him. He's in line as these cars pull up, giving out plates of food and styrofoam containers and giving a helping hand. Let me lower my voice and see if we can hear anything.
Did you need 28?
He said, here you go. Here you go. Imagine what it's like. You've been through this. It now has stopped raining. Rivers are about to crest. So the trouble looms now. It lurks in the distance as those rivers crest, some of them at record levels, creating an even worse flooding system for many people, flooding situation. Mandatory evacuations came after Florence had really started to move away, and the outer bands of that rain were hitting these areas, just to let you know how big that beast was. And so now we're seeing the aftermath with the president going in and visiting a total of 5 stops. This is the second for today. The hurricane damage he will tour next. We are told he's going to walk through a neighborhood in New Bern, North Carolina. The church that's hosting is Temple Baptist Church here. And now you see them start to take that walk. As people pick up their meals and supplies, the president will see what it will take to pick up their lives. And a reminder that New Bern is quite a distance from Cherry Point, the Marine Air Station. So they're getting help from all over. Second stop from the president. I want to bring in our guests on set today. Charlie Hurt is here. And you know, Charlie, as you look at this part of the president's responsibility, it's something that presidents do so well, all of them, and it is that personal touch that people want to huddle together and see the man who from a distance has promised and now has kept his promise to help.
Yeah, and I think that this president in particular really likes this kind of thing. He often sort of operates from a political standpoint as sort of America, kind of like a mayor. And he wants to be down there and you know, helping the people that have been hit by the storm, but also he loves to pose with law enforcement wherever he goes. He loves that kind of hands-on stuff. But I loved a minute ago on that footage where he was handing out food to people in the cars. Did you hear what one of them said? The woman was accepting the food, and she looked at him. She's just been through a hurricane. She just survived a hurricane. And what does she say to him? She says, "Mr. President, we're praying for you." She's praying for him, which is you know, that's the that's the kind of people there are down in that part of the country.
I think they're all over America.
Yeah, exactly.
I believe that.
A lot of times in these situations, you know, people will pop up and criticize the president for coming in here because they'll say, you know, you're taking up resources. But the truth is, I think, for people on the ground, and what we just heard from them is, it lifts their spirit. And also, we know in television, when you bring attention, you bring resources and help and well-wishes.
I was just going to say that. It's not, yes, in some ways it does, because you have to protect him, drain resources, but it also attracts so much, and it gets the American people engaged. Listen to that as they cheer. Just imagine you have lost livelihoods. You've got 15,000 people still in shelters this hour, and I talk about those farming community livelihoods, millions of poultry birds, 5,500 hogs. I mean, their financial, their economy now impacted by this. You saw Secretary of the Small Business Administration there, McMahon, talking about the loans that they're going to make available to businesses to start to rebuild. We're following the president today on the ground where America has watched a disaster unfold along the Carolina coast, the midsection of the East Coast. We'll continue to follow him. He has 5 stops. This is the second of the 5. And as it rolls out, we can show it to you. Stay close to Fox News for this.
Fox News alert now. New developments in the showdown over Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. An attorney for the woman accusing Kavanaugh of sexual assault more than 3 decades ago is now imposing new conditions on her client's testimony. Kavanaugh's confirmation was thrown into question after a university professor from California, this is Christine Blasey Ford, told the Washington Post that Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her during a party in the early 1980s when they were both high school students. Kavanaugh has strongly denied these allegations. Lawmakers have called on Ford to tell her story during a hearing set for Monday. But Ford's attorney telling CNN last night that her client wants an FBI investigation before she is willing to testify. Watch.
Any talk of a hearing on Monday, frankly, is premature because she just came forward with these allegations 48 hours ago. And since that time, she has been dealing with hate mail, harassment, death threats. So she's been spending her time trying to figure out how to put her life back together. If the senators who have come forward and said they want to treat this seriously mean that, then they'll have an investigation of these allegations so that we all go into this more informed.
But Senate Judiciary Chair Chuck Grassley effectively saying his committee has bent over backwards to accommodate a hearing Ford would be comfortable with. Republican Mike Rounds expanding on this, more on this morning. Take a listen.
I know that the chairman has offered to do this in private. He's offered to do it in public if that's their choice. I know that Senator Collins had suggested that rather than having members of the committee actually ask the questions, to actually have outside counsel hired separately to come in and to ask specific questions of both, trying to find a way to make this as bipartisan as possible, even if our colleagues on the other side of the aisle really haven't seen fit to take that approach.
In the meantime, Senate Democrats yesterday also calling to delay the Kavanaugh vote, and they slammed Republicans for their handling of the sexual assault allegation watch.
Scheduling a hearing for Monday, a week from when Dr. Ford made her accusations public, is a shameful attempt to jam this through.
The simple fact here is that so far, the Republican leadership has completely disrespected this survivor.
What the Republicans are doing to her today is exactly why so many survivors do not come forward.
But President Trump this morning, before heading to North Carolina, saying he stands behind Kavanaugh. Watch.
I'd really want to see her. I really would want to see what she has to say. I think he's an extraordinary man. I think he's a man of great intellect, as I've been telling you, and he has an unblemished record.
Peter Ducey is live now on Capitol Hill with the latest. Peter.
Melissa, we just caught up with Senator Chuck Grassley. He's the point person for a hearing because he is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and he told us that Kavanaugh's accuser, Dr. Ford, pleaded through the Washington Post to come and testify. So now he's doing whatever he can to get her here on Monday.
Where I'm focused right now is doing everything that we can to make Dr. Ford comfortable with coming before our committee, either in an open session or a closed session or a public or a private interviews. That's 4 different ways she can choose to come. And so I'm not worried about anything other than just focusing for the next few days on encouraging her to come.
The lawyer for Kavanaugh's accuser says she wants to wait until the FBI investigates her allegations of sexual misconduct before agreeing to come to the Hill. But law enforcement sources are saying that's not going to happen because there are no allegations of federal crimes. And a federal law enforcement official tells Fox it's totally inappropriate for someone to demand we use law enforcement resources to investigate a 35-year-old allegation when she won't go under oath and can't remember key details, including when or where it happened. So now Democrats are starting to say maybe Monday just isn't convenient for the accuser.
We need to plan this around her schedule. You know, listen, when we have any other hearing on any other committee I've been involved with, and I'm talking about even when we subpoena people to testify before a committee, we work out the schedule. And from everything I can tell, they arbitrarily made a decision that it would be Monday.
But Republicans say the 1-week notice they gave Dr. Ford about the hearing was plenty. And if she does not show up, they are prepared to move forward with a vote to confirm. Melissa?
Peter Ducey, thank you so much for that. I'll go out to the rest of our couch here. Kennedy, let's not forget it was her lawyer who was the first one who said this woman is willing to come and testify in Capitol Hill. It was their idea.
It was their idea, and they're changing the criteria, which just, sort of speaks to the fact that this whole thing is so politicized. And if you're on one side, if you're on the Democrat side, you're more likely to believe Dr. Ford and, want to prolong the process as long as possible, conveniently until after the midterms. And if you are a Republican, you tend to see Judge Kavanaugh in a very sympathetic light, and you tend to think that any accusation from decades ago could completely unravel someone's life. And that essentially isn't fair. And I think what both sides have to do is try and get to the truth in an expeditious manner. You can't necessarily delay this for political gain, because that will ultimately hurt Democrats.
Marie, is it fair to come forward with this type of accusation and then not follow through?
Well, I think that she is trying to find a way to follow through, given what's happened in the last few days. The death threats, the fact that she's had to leave her home and hire private security, that's not okay. That's not acceptable. No one should be threatening this woman. I hope they find a way for her to testify and for Kavanaugh to testify, whether that's an open session or closed session, whether that's next Monday or next Wednesday or next Friday. I also think the FBI should probably look again at their background clearance for him, given there's new information, and see if it changes their judgment. It may not.
Is it new information, though? Because they had this and they turned it over.
Well, they
have this.
never considered this as part of a background investigation. It may not change anything, but I think to check every box and to do due diligence, I hope we can find a way.
But with respect, they did. They did have it as part of the background check. They did get the claim and
They passed it back to the White House. They never investigated it. They passed it back to the White House and said, you guys figure out what to do with this politically. They never investigated it. Nothing may come from that, but doing the due diligence, I hope we can hear from her in some way. I don't think Monday needs to be like the perfect day that we circle, and if she doesn't do it then, well, she's clearly lying.
But do you think that it really should be all around her schedule?
I think she has a right to find a day that works for her.
It matters, okay?
It matters.
She's available to do it, but when you hear Kamala Harris and some others, other elected officials on the Hill say, well, this has really got to be all about her, it's all about it. I think it's about two people at this point until we find out more witnesses.
Sure, but I don't think her schedule should be discounted.
I think that's right, Harrison. I think that's what changes everything. If you have a witness on one side or the other that can in some way corroborate it, then it changes the entire landscape.
That's actually worth waiting for.
And we are at an impasse.
So, real quickly, I just want to get your thought on this, Charlie. And this is not to cast any doubt or shadow on the victim's story, alleged victim's story, but I think it's a fair question. You know, this is the highest court.
Sure.
It's not the only court. And it is certainly not the highest court in this man's career because he's been a federal judge. He's been vetted. He's had several background checks. It does feel like 11th hour type math in all of this because his current job is important too.
Sure.
So why not come forth when he was named a federal judge? That's a question that I would want to ask her Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whenever she sits down.
And all, you know, in the same vein, you know, a question that I've had from day one is, according to her own story, the first time that she ever verbalized this account and named him was after his name had been floated as a shortlist for the Supreme Court. And to me, that's a very alarming admission on her part that the only corroborating, the only people that she's corroborated the story with are people that heard it after she was concerned he would be a Supreme Court.
The therapist notes don't have the name. Her husband does.
From 2012.
From 2012.
But she
publicly, yes.
But she told but at that time, the reason she verbalized his name is because she'd heard it that he was on the short list to be on the Supreme Court.
Not in 2012, when Obama was president.
No, but he was on. It was. She. I mean, I
There are
don't know
still conservative lists and liberal lists for Supreme Court
the whole
consideration, regardless of who's in the White House.
But the whole thing is very disturbing, and the idea that you're going to, and the reason it's so important about the fact that she has not said when this happened or where this happened, is that it completely, it undermines Kavanaugh's ability to look at a date, look at a time, look at a place, and say, no, I was somewhere else at that time.
Do you think that's why you need an FBI investigation or some kind of investigation?
No, I don't. I think that I don't think there's a judge in America. I don't think that there's a prosecutor in America who would bring charges like this against somebody if you didn't have those key details.
Well, and in this specific case, the statute of limitations have run out anyway. So
and there's a reason for that.
That's another reason the FBI can't investigate, because a private citizen decides that they know what the threshold is for law enforcement.
And we will have a lot more on this controversy surrounding the Kavanaugh nomination. The top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary, Dianne Feinstein, under increasing scrutiny. Republicans and some Democrats with big questions about when she knew of the allegations and when and why she chose to share them. Plus, the president saying his order to immediately declassify a trove of documents on the Russia investigation could be the crowning achievement of his presidency. But now word that the DOJ is in no rush to comply. We will debate why. And here is Republican Congressman Peter King on those efforts. President Trump right now is touring hurricane damage in the Carolinas. He is on his way right now to his next stop. He's going to be looking at a neighborhood that was impacted by the rain and the flooding and the devastation. This is video from just a few minutes ago. in New Bern, where he was handing out meals. As you can see, people pulling up, and he gets the little styrofoam tray together and hands it off to the drivers there in New Bern, North Carolina. He was at a Baptist church there, trying to lift some spirits and hand out some food for folks that have been devastated by this storm. The next stop is going to be in another neighborhood. He's on his way there, and when he gets there, we will bring you that video.
Okay, so now apparently the video changes, and as soon as we can show you that live, we will. One thing I would say, Melissa,
we're hearing that he's there, so we're going to go back in a second when we see it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That was my first television market, Washington, New Bern, Greenville. Oh. And I mentioned earlier about the Small Business Administration representatives being on the ground. The livelihoods of people, from tobacco to hogs to poultry, being devastated, it's unimaginable how that changes life.
Yeah.
Because it isn't just that they are feeling the pain urgently of having to be in shelters, and FEMA will be there on the ground. Some of those people, as we learned from Hurricane Sandy, could be there for a year or two in a shelter while they rebuild some of these low-lying areas. But it has to do with the restoration. Like, how do you replace 3.4 million birds?
Right.
Like, it has to do with the restoration of livelihood and the ability to make money for yourself.
Okay.
Sustainability.
This is the live picture now that we're looking at, and you see him there, and he's shaking hands with folks in their front yard. And like you said, it is something to have the president come to your neighborhood. Yeah, they're sitting there.
Of the president of the United States. When you've lived through these storms, as we have on the East Coast, and you've had tornadoes in other parts of the country, when you've had devastation from Mother Nature, it is the thing that yokes us together, because nobody can escape it.
Yeah.
And so, they can move us to higher ground until the storm passes, and then you come back and you're all in the same boat of loss. Yeah, look at that. Lean in, give the president a hug, taking pictures. This is soul restoring.
Yeah.
But the long-term work that you heard the governor of North Carolina talking about is fierce. And to see him, the president, in a statesman-like position, I would say, Charlie, next to that Democrat governor, doesn't it just all float away, and we're all together in this?
Especially when you compare it to what's going on in Washington and what goes on in Washington practically all the time now. This is very good. It shows a president that is working hard, trying to help out in a terrible situation. And you're talking about the farmers down there, and of course farming is all about planning and providing for the future.
And weather.
And weather.
Right.
And praying for good weather, and praying not for weather like this. But it literally takes years to you're set back years in terms of trying to replace things and to get back into a position where you can provide for your family.
Well, and so many times in these situations too, Kennedy, people are standing there and they're saying, does anybody know we're suffering? Like, does anybody know how bad this is? And that's what having the president go down and look firsthand is about, is he's kind of sitting there going, I see what's happened to you. And, somebody hears you and sees you and is here to help. Go ahead.
What's also interesting is, some of the communities that we saw were devastated during Harvey in Texas, and even Maria and Puerto Rico, how neighbors come together and are actually much more effective at saving lives because they keep tabs on their neighbors in close communities like this, and that's why they're able to use apps and alert those, like members of the Cajun Navy who, are an informal flotilla who were able to go in and rescue people, and it's individuals who tend to be the most heroic in these situations, and that's very inspiring. But what I'm curious about is, the same parts of North Carolina devastated by Hurricane Matthew just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
For people who are receiving federal assistance and emergency aid, are they going to choose to leave the area?
Look at the picture in the center screen, the tears. This is, when you see the president and leaning into the circle of people, and he's getting those details. When you've covered this, he's getting those details of really individually what it's going to take. And he's on the ground listening to that. He'll take that back. And with the briefing coupled along with this very human take, this human element. You know, I've got pets, they're in shelters, I'm with my children. All those stories, all that texture, the president will then make some further decisions about how to help this area. It is just beginning. Marie, you were going to say?
And those are long-term decisions, Harris, because as Kennedy said, they're still cleaning up from Matthew. We still see Puerto Rico and parts of Texas being rebuilt after Harvey, after Maria. These are long-term rebuilding projects that will require a lot of attention, whether it's from nonprofits who do great work, whether it's from state and local, whether it's federal assistance. These are areas that once the cameras are gone today, once the president's gone, need to.
But can I say something about these cameras right here as we're watching this? So can you imagine you're one of those people standing on your front lawn and you have been through so much, and you look down the street and who's walking down the center of the street towards your house but the President of the United States? And we know, you know, love him or hate him, he gets very emotional in these situations, and it is very touching to him to go out and meet people. He is there with the governor of that state right now, Governor Cooper, as they sort of walk down the middle. Look, somebody on the other side. Hi, Mr. President.
Come over
he turns, he spins. I mean, the Secret Service is probably going crazy.
So I'm not certain exactly in this particular neighborhood, but many of the areas in New Bern, and it is so low-lying, and they're beautiful water views from most of the area. I mean, it's just incredible there. It's so pretty. But, you know, as you look at this, a lot of these people still don't have utilities. So it's not like they're in their houses watching TV and go, oh, my goodness, the president's outside on my front lawn. You're right, they're standing out there. And you know, let's just think about the conditions on the ground also that the president now is able to touch. Imagine the mosquito population where there is so much water.
And the fact that there's still much more damage to come.
Right. Imagine the soft ground for those trees, and that's why you do this sort of thing up until dusk, and then they clear everybody out because overnight you'll get tree falls for weeks. And you know, and it's not the only weather around. There will be other rain to come, obviously, in the forecast. And so this is a vulnerable area now. And so the president just gets to touch and really experience what they're going through. Many of these people, as we're being told through reporting, will not sleep in these homes tonight. They will go away and they'll go back to family, friends, shelters.
And Kirstjen Nielsen said something really important, I think, in that briefing where they had with the president, where she said just because it's sunny and there's blue sky does not mean the danger's gone.
No, the rivers are cresting.
And that, I think, because you look at these and it's nicer weather there than it is in New York right now, but there's a lot of danger still ahead, and I think that was an important point she made.
Hurricane season, by the way, has not ended.
Right.
And so, you know, that isn't to say that another storm could come through here, but we're always impacted by whatever is coming by, and this is a storm about water. So if they even get an afternoon thunderstorm, it's complicated for them. So the road ahead, we keep saying it's long, but it's also, can you imagine just looking out the window and trepidation in your heart? Oh my goodness, so how much rain are we going to get this time?
And not only that, I mean, like you said before, they're not just looking at their homes being wiped out. It's their businesses. It's not like the kind of business where you can move it somewhere else. It's if you're a farmer, if you have hogs, if you have poultry, and you've gone through these big changes, they're not going back to work, you know, anytime soon on top of everything else. It's really a double whammy.
So what we heard from Linda McMahon and the Small Business Administration is they were going to have those special type of loans for people here for some time to come. And that's really important because you've got to feel supported. Now, some of these people were evacuated too, so you had the added cost. Some hotels had lowered their prices or had given some things away, but it's been a week. So now you've been eating at restaurants. Some of these people are, you know, on the line economically, and so to factor in a couple $1,000s to stay evacuated and then come back to this is complicated. Charlie?
You know, it's funny, Donald Trump gets into trouble sometimes by being unorthodox and not following some of the normal procedures, but this is where that kind of shines the most, because he will just sort of it looks like he's in somebody's garage. He'll just walk up.
Let me help you with that.
Yeah, he really does love regular people. And he loves being around them, and he feeds off of it. And
that's a great point.
Well, thank goodness, because most of us are regular.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we are going to continue to follow the president's movements here as you watch them on camera. And in the meantime, Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein under fire over her handling of the sexual assault allegations against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. Was Feinstein trying to protect the victim's identity by waiting weeks to reveal details of the letter she received? Or is this a brazen attempt to derail the nomination? We're going to debate that coming up. President Trump today slamming Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein for her handling of the sexual assault allegations against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. Feinstein waited weeks before revealing that she received a letter from Kavanaugh's accuser detailing the allegations. Here's the president.
What I don't like is that Senator Feinstein had this letter for a period of like 3 months, from July, maybe even before that, but from July. Why didn't Senator Feinstein bring this up at her meeting with Judge Kavanaugh? Why didn't the Democrats? They knew about the letter because she was showing it to Democrats. Why did they wait till everything was finished and then bring it up?
And on Capitol Hill, the Washington Post reports that there is growing criticism of Feinstein among Republicans and even some Democrats over her decision not to share this information with some of her Senate colleagues until it leaked to the media last week. In the meantime, Feinstein yesterday stepping up her push for an investigation of the Kavanaugh allegations.
I believe she is credible. What we have wanted was an investigation carried out to look at the facts before there was a hearing. And I hope people will let her be, and I hope that her lawyers will let her come back and straighten this out.
We've had a quick development. Do you mind if I?
Okay, please.
So this is coming from Shannon Bream, Fox News at Night. If you haven't seen it, watch it at 11 p.m. Eastern. Sources telling Shannon that they are willing to send a committee staff to Dr. Ford in California or wherever she would like to meet to get her side of the story versus, quote, the bright lights of a national hearing. And Shannon's pushing for whether or not this is in lieu of Monday's hearing or to prelude it. This is unclear yet, whether or not this would cause any further delay with travel and all of that. But it's an interesting option. It also potentially, Melissa, I guess, could get the optics of a woman on camera asking her questions should they choose to send that type of staff to go depose her. Just a thought.
It is. I mean, it's an interesting idea, but then you could see it spinning back in the other direction where they're like, she doesn't want to come forward, so now they're going to hunt her down. It's all in how you. It's all in how
the offer is made.
Because,
sure.
or it could be
if it happens.
If she doesn't want to come forward at all at this point, Charlie. I mean, her team could kind of spin it in any way they want. I feel like it's not wrong to say that there's a reluctance on her part now to come out at all.
But she's leveled serious charges, and it's not unfair to say if you're going to level these charges, we need to get a full hearing of them. But it really this whole thing has been shameful all around. I think it's shameful for what is happening to Brett Kavanaugh here because it's clearly being politicized, and I think it's shameful what happened to her. The fact that this stuff that she asked for it not to be, or the information not to be let out, it sort of begs the question: well, why write the letter in the first place? But clearly, I gather she probably thought that if this could be established, there was a pattern. Clearly, a pattern like this was not established. But in any event, it's a terrible situation.
She's also a well-educated woman.
Yeah.
This is someone who knows what the processes are, and I'm sure she's treated people as a psychologist who've had to go through law enforcement and deal with trauma. And she also knows the appropriate avenue, if you really want to deal with this in an appropriate and legitimate way, is to go through law enforcement and not gossipy lawmakers.
Right.
Because that's exactly what they were doing. And, for the people who are looking over Dianne Feinstein's shoulder, reading that letter, to them, this is an insurance policy. Otherwise, this information would have been made available discreetly much sooner in the process.
Marie, what do you make of the reports? And then now some Democrats on the Hill saying, well, it must have leaked. Well, it would have been them who leaked it.
Right. I think that we don't know who eventually leaked it.
You think it was leaked by a Democrat?
I think someone had the information and gave it to a reporter.
Looking over the shoulder, as Kennedy just
But I don't know who it was.
made us
And
feel
quite
like
frankly,
we were
I don't
there.
think it was Dianne Feinstein, because this is not helping her. She is getting criticism, and I do have some questions about how she handled it. So, and you know,
what would be one question that you would want to ask Dianne Feinstein?
I know what I would ask.
I would ask her why she didn't share this with the committee so they could question Kavanaugh about it in closed session.
I would ask.
They did a closed session.
Why did she not ask him about it when he was alone in her office?
Or
if she had this information and she had access to him, why would she not say to him, and what about this?
Right. And the reality, I think, just the reality is, if there are no other accusations or allegations that come out, regardless of what happens with any hearing, I think Brett Kavanaugh will be confirmed.
Well, and I mean, if you look, if history is any guide, you even have some of the same people on the Senate, right? I mean, you even have some of the same lawmakers who would be deposing her.
But Feinstein is not the only person who's probably due some criticism here. Also, imagine if Chuck Schumer hadn't forced Mitch McConnell to do the nuclear option with Neil Gorsuch.
Yes.
They would still have that option right now, and they don't.
That's interesting.
All right. Sources telling Fox that the DOJ is in no rush to comply with the president's order to declassify a trove of material related to the Russia probe, and some former intelligence officials now saying the Justice Department should actively thwart the president's order. Is that right? Is it illegal even? We'll debate.
Well, now we know. President Trump has revealed why he ordered the declassification of documents related to the kickoff to the Russia investigation, telling The Hill he is exposing what he calls the corrupt portions of the FBI, and that it could be, quote, the crowning achievement of his presidency. And goes on to say, I hope to be able to put this up as one of my crowning achievements, that I was able to expose something that is truly a cancer in our country. They used Carter Page as a foil in order to surveil a candidate for the presidency of the United States. All of that in quotes. But former CIA director and Trump critic John Brennan says leaders of the intelligence community have an obligation to block the president's order. Watch it.
I think Christopher Wray, Director of FBI, and Dan Coats, Director of National Intelligence, as well as Rod Rosenstein, who is overseeing this investigation, should push back against any directive that is going to have negative impact on our capabilities. If Mr. Trump and the White House does not relent, well, then I think they have some decisions to make, whether or not they're going to just not follow that direction and be fired, or to resign.
Tough part of my job is, first, do I go to Kennedy, who's nodding, or to Charlie, who's taking notes? Kennedy.
I think if John Brennan wants to completely obliterate the idea that there is a deep state, he needs to stop talking. Because every time he says something like this,
See, that's why I went to her first.
People who hold these sensitive jobs in the FBI and DOJ and CIA, that they somehow need to get together in a cabal and block the president.
That's not what he said. He said if they don't feel comfortable doing it, they should resign. He didn't say they should subvert the president. They said they should make the case if they think it's a bad idea, and if he continues, they should resign. That's what you do in government.
Didn't he use the word block, or did I hallucinate?
No, you did not. You did not hallucinate, and he didn't. John Brennan feels like he would do a better job of running the country covertly than the president is doing very overtly. And, you know, they are at odds with their worldviews about who should have access to information. And, you know, I hope that when the president says that this is his crowning achievement, because transparency is so critical, I hope he really means that, and not just in cases where it's politically convenient for him. I would like to see all sorts of FISA applications. I would like to see all sorts of surveillance agencies taken to task and held accountable for some of the things that they've done to innocent Americans.
All right, so it wasn't block, it was a hallucination.
But whatever it was, it's clear he is in favor of covering this up, and that's very troubling. But I do understand why he is, because I think that he's probably very worried about some of the things that are going to come out. But the thing I don't get is why there's so many people in the press who are so opposed to
getting information. That's never happened before.
It's usually more, right? Like, give us more.
For 20 years, and I have never in my life.
So why do you think that's happening? I'm curious.
I think because they're in the bag for being against Donald Trump at any measure. for any reason whatsoever, because it's all been politicized, as Kennedy
Well, if he
points
gets
out.
reelected, they're going to be exhausted.
Oh, yes. They're
all right.
Any heads that have not already exploded will then explode.
Lots of goo on the walls.
Lots of goo.
It's lunchtime across much of the country. Let's move on. North Korea renewing hope for peace. Have you heard about all the things that have happened with North Korea today? On that Korean peninsula, Kim Jong-un committing to denuclearization at a summit with South Korea's president. But will his pledge lead to a concrete plan for disarmament? And what does it all mean for the United States? Stay close.